I thought I'd talk about Italy, where I went over a period of 50 years. I went many, many times, but there were particular moments and particular visits which made an impact on me at the time. The very first one that made an impact was in 1960, such a long time ago now, when I was aged 23 then. I was sent by the Department of Education to be part of the British delegation at an international architecture exhibition in Milan. And this involved going to Milan, finding somewhere to live, found a very nice boarding house, and being on duty at the exhibition. So I had to mug up a great deal on architecture, educational architecture in this case, and on my Italian had to be polished up a great deal. But that was a very exciting occasion when I was part of an international delegation. There were all countries represented there. So it meant, I suppose for me, it meant becoming internationally minded, realising what fun it was to be part of a community that covered many different nations and many different cultures. The second major visit to Italy was a few years after that, when Peter, my first husband, had got a postdoctoral fellowship in Florence, which just landed on our doormat out of the blue, the offer of this fellowship. And I went along and I got a job at the British Institute in Florence teaching English. And that was my first experience of teaching. And it was something, again, quite revelatory to me, that I enjoyed it a great deal. And it led me on into other teaching later on. And again, it was part of contact with a different culture, a different civilization. We did a lot of travelling about in Italy, and that was a wonderful experience. And the third time was something more to do, I suppose, with my personal development. By that time I had 3 small children. Adrian was the youngest, he was 1 year old, and Peter had again got a fellowship arrangement in Florence, and for the family he found an old farmhouse right out in the countryside near Florence, in an area called the Mugello, which is a wonderful deep country valley that runs out of Florence. And he'd found this farmhouse that was on an estate called Il Trebbio, which was an old Medici castle and farmhouses around, scattered around in the fields and all about it. Off on a very long track from the road, a bumpy track, miles away from anywhere. And we landed there. We were there for 3 months. I had these 3 small children. And Peter went off every day in the car to Florence, to the university. And I stayed there completely alone with the 3 children in this deep countryside. There were snakes, and I had to have some special stuff in the fridge from the chemist in case any of the children got bitten by snakes. And there were scorpions, there were ants that invaded the kitchen regularly. And the first fortnight we were there, I pleaded to find somewhere else. I said I couldn't stay here with the children. It was too different. I was an urban creature, they were urban children, and it was all too much. But then, after about a fortnight, I got used to it, and we settled into a sort of different pace of life. I took up drawing when the children were playing or Adrian was asleep in his cot, and I gave them lessons, and I learnt how to manage this very different but very peaceful environment. And so I felt I learned something out of that experience. I learned how to adapt and change.